most of the work we do is during the weekdays, and it involves, at a minimum, all the schools that we have that are outside of an established town. For sure, we handle all those, but even some of the ones within established towns, we help them put together plans for in the event that something bad happens, whether or not it's shooting in the school, whether or not it's involving bombs potentially in the school or that. We walk through setting up plans for them. We get blueprints of schools from them. We work with them so that we know in the event of something bad happening, A, what they should do, and we know how to help them as well. We've increased it a great deal now when we have police officers that go inside all the schools that we have that are outside of towns, established towns. We send officers in at the beginning of every school day and at the end of every school day just to keep up on how things are going and if people have any questions. So it's really to add security level to them. And we've been doing it for years, but like a lot of other people, we've increased it quite a bit since Connecticut's tragedy.
I ask you because most of the Sunday schools are really hardly working during the weekend. And in this regard, some of them are really hosted in churches, 3 of them in fact, and the other 6 are hosted in public schools.
We'd be happy to help if people were to designate for us. For example, there were some problems that were of concerns with some of the Muslim community. So we reached out and we got all the location of the different mosques, and we have a pattern where we drop by and we talk to them before services. We work with them on special events. We do the same thing with synagogues, with any other denomination that has those issues. It's just the need for people to come to us and let us know that they have a concern, or it would add some level of security to them, just to have that's sort of in the back of their head that there's that safety issue that's being addressed. But we just have to have people reach out to us and let us know that in the times that would be relevant to it.
What's the most common and most convenient way for you that you can be informed about different issues, or how is the most proper way that people can address you with different issues, or ask you for assistance, or discuss with you eventual assistance?
It really runs the gamut. We have a website, but I'd be lying to you if I said I checked it every day. I don't. People call me a lot if they have specific needs. Frequently they will talk to different people, and maybe like my police department or someone at the jail if there's an issue there. But I will tell people to call me personally if there's specific issues they want to talk to me about. I frequently will talk to citizens who reach out to me about issues they might have with gangs in the area, issues they might have, because we have a gang unit as well. We have a narcotics unit. People who have problems with narcotics being sold on their block. Some members of the Pakistani community reached out to me about a year ago. They were having concerns along a strip on Devon Avenue where they had concerns about prostitution. So we did a bunch of undercover prostitution work that helped clean up the area quite a bit. But then there's other people who will reach out to me about specific narcotics issues, and then we will get the information and attempt the best we can to try to address it. So there's a lot of different ways to get a hold of me. You can call my police department itself, and I have numbers that I can give people. You can attempt to get a hold of me on the website. There's other people from my office who are much more engaged in the website than I am. Or people can call me at my office, which I split time pretty much between the jail about 3 days a week, and then we have an office in Maywood for our police department, and I'm out there probably 2 days a week.
And what occurs to my mind while you're telling all this is the question, if, for example, there's a specific area where Bulgarians are living and there is something that they register that is totally against their comfort or their security or their self, and they get an information to you about that or contact you about this, how can they be sure that their safety would not be jeopardized because of them being informing you?
Yeah, there's a million ways we go about doing that, and it really is rather straightforward and easy. We have, the majority of the tips you usually get are anonymous in some form or another, or they ask to be anonymous. more often than not, we don't need to have their presence as such. If they're witness to a physical crime, sometimes there may be a need for someone to actually testify, but if it's actually just talking about a more general problem of either narcotic sales or gang activity, the chances that that individual would play any role other than just steering us in the right direction is pretty slim. However, if someone witnesses, say, someone being assaulted, then there's a possibility you might need to come forward. But that's, all of us should do that. But by and large, informing to us about criminal activity is a general concern. There's very little need for anybody's name to ever be utilized. Anybody else with any specific questions or anything like that? Anything about our food at the jail? It's horrible. I'm trying to think. It's, as I say, it's an interesting. It's a very interesting office. We've been real engaged in a lot of different issues now, so it's been somewhat expanding. Sir, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. I'm like a school teacher. I see someone flinching. You have a problem? Yes, sir.
There was in the news that ex-Governor Ryan will be out of jail. Do you know something about it?
Yeah, he is going to be released to a halfway house.
Yeah.
And he'll spend a short period of time there, and then after that, then he'll be released free. He went into the federal system, which is different than our state system in a lot of respects, and I'm not saying good or bad, it's just very different. So they have a whole routine that once you've served a certain percentage of your sentence, in the federal system it's most of it. Once you've served most of it, then you are not released to the street, you're released to these halfway houses for a short period of time, then back to the street or your home. In the state system, with us, it's different. Once you leave prison, you're back right out on the street. It's quite different. We have, I often tell people, the world that I inhabit is very bizarre. I mean, it's knowing all these nuances about criminal law. Real people, the real public doesn't really have any reason to know that, and they shouldn't. But the majority of the people that I have in my jail, for example, the majority of them are never going to go down to our prison system because of a myriad of reasons, primarily because they get probation, so they aren't going to go down to our prisons. Most all of our prisons in this state are in southern Illinois. There's like 2 of them that are in the Joliet area, but the rest of them are way down south, about 5 hours away. Most of the people that are in my jail don't go down there unless you're charged with murder or some type of sexual assault case. The other ones get some types of probation, so most of them are just going right back to their communities. So we've been working very hard to develop strategies to try to teach them some skills so they aren't going out and committing new offenses when they leave us. And it's very, very tricky. So we've been coming up with a lot of pretty crazy things. We have 4 farms in the jail now where we raise all sorts of produce. We sell it to restaurants in the downtown Chicago area, and we're making a decent amount of money off of that. We also have a fish farm as well, where we are doing aquaponics, so that we're raising tilapia that we sell, and the tilapia then feed the aquaculture, which then goes back into the fish food. It's pretty wild. We have a solar farm as well. I'm thinking of raising chickens this year, try and make some more money. I'm always trying to push the envelope on how I can make money and stop spending it. It costs an average of just under $150 a day for someone to stay at my jail, and that money comes out of all your pockets. So it's something that I've been trying to figure out strategies to reduce that, and it's tricky. It's tricky, but the best way to reduce it is to have them not come back, and so I've been trying to come up with ways to do that that's thoughtful. It's hard though. It's hard. My population moves in and out of the jail pretty quickly because they come in on goofy little offenses, so they're only with me for 4 or 5 days and then out they go. The ones in for murder and things like that, they'll stay there a long period of time. One of the biggest problems that I have is we in Cook County have the worst record, I believe, in the country now, as far as the length of time people stay in the jail before their trial occurs. We've got the longest, and that's bad on a million levels, primarily because it's expensive, but in the event someone's actually innocent, the fact that they had to sit an extended period of time before they got their trial is really bad. And so we have some people that have been in my custody, not a lot, I mean probably, 3 or 4 have been in my custody for over 10 years waiting for their trial. There's more of them fit in the area of waiting 2 to 3 years for their trial, but on the back end, I'll have some people for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 years, waiting on the trial. It's the 2 and 3 year ones that really bother me, because the 10 years and so, they usually are very complicated cases that nonetheless should move ahead, because I used to be a prosecutor, I understand the side of it pretty well. But it's the 2 or 3 year ones on, frankly, pretty straightforward cases of drug possession or stealing a car or things like that. Those are the troubling ones. So the system is strange. The public has very little reason to know about it, but the public should know about it from the standpoint that the public's paying for this, and the more that the public is disengaged allows for a system that is not efficient. And so I spend a great deal of my time fighting with our judiciary, because I'm trying to get them a little bit more involved with solving some of these problems by moving things quicker, and it's been an uphill battle. But I can't emphasize enough to you folks, it's your money and it's very expensive, and if the system's not efficient, it is draining your money. I mentioned it to my wife that when you think about it, you go on one of these online services, you can get a like Priceline or something like that. You can get a hotel downtown, last minute, a nice one for $150 a night. That same $150 that you and your spouse could go downtown for the night and stay downtown is coming out of your pocket to pay for someone who stole a car or was dealing dope or something like that. So that's not, it's very troubling, and exacerbating my issues of the fact that in this state, but in most states, we've shut down most all of the mental health facilities that are out there. And so my jail is just filling up with people who have mental illness. We have probably a little over 2,000 of them in my custody today. That the primary reason they're there is because they have mental illness, not because they're criminals. So that's been a big problem, because there's nowhere for them to go. And when they leave me, they go back to the street. There's no housing for them. They don't take their medication, and then they're back to me again. We're trying to stay on top of it and get out in front of some of these things, but it's been very, very difficult. And the mental health and some of the other issues have not helped at all. Anybody else? Questions? Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to the schools. And do you provide any educational programs
We do.
for the young ones?
We do. Actually, it's we have some really good ones. We'd love to come out to any school that asks us to do it. We get a lot of people asking for it, so we would just have to get you in our line, our queue, to get the services. But it really, it has multiple parts that are available, and some might be of more interest than others. We have one aspect that is really good. I've watched them do it 2 or 3 times, and it's really fantastic. It's a drunk driving type of program to work with teenagers in regards to what drunk driving is really about. And the thing that's so neat about it is that it's less lecturing and more interactive. They'll go into like the gymnasium, they'll set cones up on the ground, and we have golf carts, my own sheriff's golf carts, and the kids will get in there and they put these special goggles on that everyone in the business knows them. They're what other people use, and they will give off the effect, once you put them on, of someone who's inebriated. And it's not even really drunk. It's someone who is basically just reaching the level of intoxication. And when you put these goggles on, your vision is so skewed that the kids then have to drive the golf cart and try to go through this course, which is pretty straightforward. They all just run over cones, they run into walls, the whole 9 yards. It really drives home to them, this is not me trying to scare you, this is what happens. We put the goggles on them, have them try to shoot baskets at a basketball hoop. They can't make those either. They then have some videos that are really incredible, they're pretty intense, that show other young people talking to them about the tragedies that happened to them because they drank and drive, and how they were the driver and they lost their brother, sister, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it might be. So that's something that's available. It's really effective.
Something related to the drug resistance or gang resistance program?
Yeah.
Public schools, they do?
Yeah, we have a lot big bullying program that we do.
Mhm.
We have one that's very effective, I believe, on internet safety, and trying to work with kids to
Oh, this is-
and parents.
Oh, wow.
And actually, to be honest with you, it's got two angles to it. We do part of it with the kids, but we also try to do it with parents as well, so parents know what to look for, because that area has been getting progressively worse, and we see a lot of those cases coming our way. We do some drug and gang as well. It's a little bit different because just my experience had shown some of the more standard programs, the DARE programs, they're called, things like that,
Yeah.
they just didn't work. They had no evidence that showed that they were working. And so we've sort of come at it in a little bit of a different way. We'll frequently tie it in with the kids coming down to the jail, and not scared straight to scare them, but more or less to show them this is the realities of it. These are just average people who are sitting in my jail because they were abusing drugs and it led to this and that. And it's not crazy, it's somewhat effective. So we have those type of aspects of the office that are, it's my preventative side that's good, and we go out to, frankly, whatever high school, grade school is appropriate.
So you have on your website how we can apply for?
You can talk to Sophia and she can
Okay.
help you find that, because I'm pretty confident it is on the website, but I hate to stare there and then finally it's not there. So I don't know. I don't do a lot of technology myself, and I just, I don't email. I understand the concept, but I also don't do it.
Can we just have a list of all these programs and
Sure.
we can spread it around and
We can get that. Yeah, they're really good.
The public school I work for, it's a Belmont Elementary. 3 years ago, they had 4 prisoners coming to school with 3 officers, and it was a great experience sharing between the students, 7 and 8
Sure,
graders. It's
sure.
elementary school, and the prisoners. What the reason they were
Sure.
behind the bars. So, do you have this kind of, or
Yeah, ours is a little bit different. Usually we have the students come to us,
Okay.
and then I'll be honest with you, it's a heck of a lot more effective.
Oh.
Because my office, where I'm at, you've been there. It's very unpleasant, and it's just how it is. So that usually has more of effect than pulling guys out of a jail, sitting them there. And that's all good, don't get me wrong, but usually when you see the place, it's like, it scares you a little bit.
it's impressive.
Yeah, it's, unpleasant. And we make the best we can with it. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm artist and I'm interested, do you use some art therapy in the prison?
It's interesting you say, no, honestly, what's funny about that? I have a proposal that I got from a gentleman a month ago about that very thing, and he gave me a whole detailed plan that we're examining now. I'm going to do it in some format. I just don't know how we do, because he didn't have like a crazy price tag attached to it, but it was enough of one where I have to explore that side of it. But the concept, I'm completely on board with. We're, as I said, we're doing some pretty outrageous thing. I read something in the newspaper about a program in I think it was in England, about teaching detainees, inmates about music. And I reached out to them. They came to the jail and they donated 10 guitars. And I had 2 gentlemen come, and they've donated their time to teach guitar lessons. Before I'd actually started it, I had over 300 people sign up for 10 spots. So that concept we moved ahead with, but it's still, I could use about 300 more guitars. Though I have to make sure they don't beat each other to death with. But the other area too, where we've been really making a lot of major gains, I guess, is we've taught them chess. And so I have a gentleman who's a chess instructor who comes in, I think it's once a week, and he teaches the detainees chess. What we've done though is we have set it up via the internet, my enemy, with other countries, and we had chess tournaments that we're having with countries throughout Europe, actually. Russia was supposed to be the first one, and Russia was a little slower getting their act together, and in the interim we had reached out and made some connections with some of the other countries. I can't remember which ones, because I was really just focused on Russia because that was the whole thing, and then they told me that Russia isn't kicked off yet, but we have these other countries in Europe we're doing it. And apparently it's been going famously. I mean, we have more people lined up to do chess than you can imagine. We had Anatoly Karpov come to the jail, and he came and visited our jail and gave a lesson to the detainees, and he's the one on the other end in Russia that's been moving that part along, but that's been really exciting, and we've had just a lot of positive results from it. And so art therapy, you name it, we're trying everything. And I've mentioned to people before, the beauty of this job in some respects is the bar is so darn low because you couldn't make it any worse, so give it a try. The other stuff hasn't been working, so we're trying all sorts of new things. I've taken somewhat, but not really I want it yet, control of their televisions, so that I'm trying to do more programming of what they're watching, because most of the inmates, and we call them detainees, when most of them, they spend their days sitting in front of a television watching it, because it's hard to set up programs, whether it's art or something else. As you can imagine, if you're trying to teach someone art, at a minimum it's going to take you a few classes to get them really up to speed on it. Well, because of the nature of it, because these people are almost all are waiting for trials, at any moment they could leave me, for the right reasons, not over the wall, but because their case was dismissed or they got probation. And so when you're trying to set up the programming, when you have a population that's always leaving you, it's hard to plug them in. Whereas when they're in a prison setting, they've already been sentenced. You know exactly how long they're going to be with you before they're released, and you can program. Jails are very difficult to program because you never know who's going to be around. And you can imagine if, like, you came and did a art program there, for example, which I would love for you to do. If you had a class of 10 people and you had their first day, everything was going great. The next week you come there and there's 10 different people there, because the 10 people you work with, their cases are all gone. You'd be like, well, I'm back to day one again. But it usually wouldn't work out that way. You'd have 10 the first day, then 2 the same, and then 8 new ones, and then it just makes it hard. And so one of the things that's always consistent is they all watch TV, so I'm trying to figure out how to manipulate the TV so that I can be pumping in educational types of programming as opposed to some of the garbage that's out there. I've removed most of the garbage, the Jerry Springer type, Maury Povich stuff where they just beat on each other's ex-girlfriend's boyfriend who's having a baby with someone. I got rid of most of that garbage, but I'm trying to get more of the thoughtful things in there.
Yeah, but of course people can be involved in something not only to do and to express their thoughts, but also to create something which is changing their way of thinking also.
Very much so. Very much so. We've had some opportunities where, for specific projects, we've had the inmates, the detainees, we've had them do the artwork for certain types of programming and covers of booklets and stuff like that. It's incredibly impressive. And when you see things like that, you see what they can do in the chess area. It's really mind-numbing just how innately intelligent so many of them are, and then you see what they're doing, and it's very tricky. That's one of the reasons when we have civilians come and visit, and I always encourage people to come by and you can see our place. It's amazing how often they immediately sort of shed this notion that they're dealing with all these subhuman type of people. We have 1 or 2 divisions where they're really bad people in there, just really bad. I would suggest most of them are beyond redemption, but the majority of the people there are in on small cases, frequently drug-related cases, that when you sit and talk with them, they're really not bad people at all, who have made poor judgments, who come from areas that have 0 opportunity. So it's not real hard to figure out why they got there. It's a question of figuring out how to sort of break that by giving them some job opportunities and the like. And we're trying, God, we're trying so many different ways. We have the manufacturing sector has been picking up, and they've been needing welders, so we have a welding program now that we're working with there as well. We have a carpentry program. We have a little bit of everything, but it's on a smaller scale.
How do you think you can use Bulgarian mainstream ethnic media to inform and educate Bulgarian community in Chicago and Cook?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like the overall media, most of the people think that, just as a general notion, that I'm pretty effective because they say they see me on TV all the time, and my kids tell me they see me more often than they see me at home, they see me on TV. So we're usually pretty good at getting out a lot of the things we do, and frequently it's because the nature of it. I mean, I don't contend to be an expert in the media at all, but there are certain topics that the media just come to like moths to a flame, and a lot of it deals with crime, a lot of the criminal justice.
Do you give a special access to media other than your official press releases that you have online?
You know, I'll be honest with you, I can't recall too many media requests that I've ever turned down. We have actually had documentaries done about us. There was actually, for 3 years, we had a TV show on the Discovery Channel and also on, I can't remember what the heck that other station, it was like MSNBC, I think. They had Inside the Jail type of thing, and they had cameras out there all the time. I stopped doing those only because it was so labor intensive on our part, and I didn't really care that much about how the shows were, you know, I was getting bored with it. But so we invite the media out there all the time. Very limited restrictions on what they want to do. I mean, I can't recall the last time the media requested something where I said no.
So we can invite you also for talk shows?
Oh yeah, sure. I do a lot of those. I haven't done as many recently. My wife and I have 5 children under 11, so things on like the weekends I usually don't do because I work pretty long hours during the week, so the weekends I stay home with the kids. So as long as like talk shows are at a time that I can work with my schedule, then I enjoy doing them. Yeah, so I'd be happy to do it. But the more we can reach out to different communities, the better. And I'm always looking for suggestions on better ways to do it. Because they say the overall, the media, I think we do a pretty good job only because they all show up all the time. But it is interesting that I lobbied the media to be more involved in covering just the more day in, day out things at the jail, because most of the public would find it really fascinating. They don't seem to catch on to that as much. They usually like just that big story or two. But as far as to local like ethnic groups, Castilia's been working with a ton of different ethnic groups for the last 3 years, 4 years now. And so in some communities we more effectively reach out than in others, not by design, but just we have developed a connection there that I really couldn't tell you how it happened, but we're probably more effective. So if you have any suggestions, we'd be happy to work with you.
Lots of phone calls, lots of FaceTime with everyone. We want to spend as much time with all of the communities. So we have actually built a network, and we've worked very closely with the consulates. So if we work closely with the consulates, we can tap into the diverse communities within Chicago and Cook County.
Is there a way that we can, for example, put the Bulgarian ethnic medias into some sort of contact list that they can get informed about anything upcoming?
About that, and then on our website also there is a section dedicated just to the press, and we put our press releases, so anything that happens that we feel is newsworthy, we print on that. We have it up on our website, and then also information on how to contact the press office. So if you want to schedule interviews or anything like that of that nature.
I'd be so hard pressed to think of some area where we'd say no. We're always attempting to try to get the word out more about what we're doing, and the more we can do it, the better. It's interesting. Before I became sheriff, it was quite strange, at least in my opinion, that they really kept the media away from the jail. They would do sheriff-related press events as regards to like a big seizure of narcotics, a big arrest of somebody about something. But as far as the jail, it was the opposite. I went in the opposite direction, and all these different TV companies that wanted to film the jail, I invited them all in. The regular media, local news stations, I always invite them to everything, because I feel that because of the nature of what we do, bad things are going to happen. I've got 12,000 people who do not want to be there, and they're in confined space. The food isn't, maybe the best. So it's, most of them are involved with gangs, who aren't with the ones with mental illness. Most of the other ones are involved with gangs, a lot of gang-related issues that compare to jail. So some bad things will happen, and I'd rather the media be fully apprised of it at the front end, so that when something does occur, they understand it. They've been there. They know this. They understand, because we have nothing to hide. And the more we can get it out, the more the public understands the dynamics that we operate under, and frankly, how hard we're trying. And we really are. I mean, it's been a monumental effort to try to get some of the things done that we have been doing, at the same time that I've reduced my budget every year I've been in office. So it's been quite a juggling act, but we've been doing it. So the more the media is aware of it, the better we feel about it.
You've mentioned the food is not that good in jail. But have you tried ethnic foods? Because there are so many ethnic foods in the community.
I'd be afraid.
Not in the community.
I'd be afraid that they like it and they won't want to leave. Then. So it's like you walk that balance where you want to give them digestible food, but not good enough where they sit there and say, you know what, it's fun. Let's go back. So I think it costs us. Oh my God, I'm trying to remember. I think it's like 6 cents a meal.
6 cents.
6 cents.
Yeah, because when you think about we're feeding about 33,000 meals a day we're preparing, and so I mean the proportions. I mean the size of what we're trying to do is so huge. It's darn close to impossible to make the chicken pot pie come out just the way you want it. So it's. The stuff's not that awful. I was over there in the kitchen just last week, and it smelled really good. And that then worries me that it's so good they're going to love it and they're not going to want to leave. So it's amazing. You should see our kitchen is humongous, just because of all the meals that we prepare every day. We have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. And we move. Every day, and see that's another reason why to say real difference. A prison is where someone goes to serve their sentence. They've been found guilty, and they gave them a certain period of time. Like George Ryan, he got his years. You serve it for that period of time, then you're released. A jail, you're there for an undetermined amount of time. You're there until your case is done. So your case could get done on day 1, they throw it out. You can get done on day 2 because you pled guilty. Or you could be there 10 years waiting on the trial. So trying to plan for all that, trying to keep it all moving is difficult. And so whereas at a prison, they're all in one locked place for a defined period of time, so there's limited movement. I have to take people to court every day. I have to take people to doctor's appointments. Most of the people that come into custody of the jail, it's the only time they've ever been in front of a doctor or dentist in their life. So their medical and dental issues are huge. And then, as I say, you add on to the mental health issue. I'm moving all sorts of people to the hospital, as I mentioned, to courts. It's a constant series of movements. So on an average day, I move 1,700 people a day. I'm moving all over the place. And so as they say, my tech skills are really not as bad as I tell people. I just choose not to use email for a myriad of reasons. But the reality of it, our jail used to have a management system. The entire jail was managed by a technology system that was a DOS-based computer system, which apparently went out in the 70s. And so we had a very difficult time even knowing where people were at, where they're supposed to go, let alone managing their court dates, managing their medications, and everything else. So it's a incredibly difficult logistical operation just to operate the jail every day to make sure people get to the court hearings on the right date, the right time, they get to their doctor's appointments, they get to they get their medicine that they're supposed to get, because I can't, as I say, start with the fact that over 2,000 of them, like 2,500 of them, are on serious psychotropic medication. So these aren't people that are just a little depressed or had a bad day. These people have serious mental illness. So we're having over 2,000 getting psychotropic medication. Then we have, I couldn't even tell you how many we're getting medications for diabetes, for heart issues and stuff like that. So you're trying to get all the medication right. A lot of guys will try to hoard medication, they'll try to sell it to other people. You have to make sure they're taking their medication. There is just so many things going on at any given moment. And then you add to it, people are constantly trying to sneak narcotics into the jail, sometimes try to sneak weapons into the jail. The detainees used to constantly take the jail apart to make knives out of it so they can defend themselves. Because I mentioned, the jail is no different than the streets. There's 2 communities in the city of Chicago where I think it's almost 70% of the inmates in the jail come from just 2 communities, two communities, like 2 zip codes. So those fights that are going on the street that got them in the jail, those fights go on in the jail too. So those same gangs are there. They have, the gangster disciples have a leader for the Division 9. The vice lords have a leader in Division 9. They have leaders in each of the divisions, and so they're constantly trying to figure ways to arm themselves. So we have surgically gone through and analyzed everything in the jail that they can take apart. We try to stay a step ahead of them. But to give you an idea of just how difficult it is, one of the they used to, because no one was really watching it too well before I got there, they were stabbing each other with all sorts of stuff. Because they started taking everything away, they started having to really push to try to come up with things. One of the things we found out they were doing is inside the shoes, particularly with Timberland shoes, there was metal inserts, and so they'd take those out and they'd sharpen the end to make a knife out of it. So I had to take all their shoes away, which meant I had to buy everyone's shoes, which got expensive, but it meant they weren't stabbing each other with it. Then they started stabbing each other. They'd take their glasses apart and they'd use the arm part of it and they'd stab each other with that. Then I was taking their glasses away from them as well. Then they were stabbing each other with their toothbrushes because they would sharpen the end of it. So I changed the toothbrushes to where the toothbrushes are this long. You have to hold it like this to brush your teeth. They were starting fires in their cells because they wanted to heat up their food. So I had to then go through the entire menu personally to make sure anything that was likely to have to be heated, I took it off the menu. And it is really complicated. As they say, we're the largest in the country. So it makes it very tricky, but it is, as they say, the more the media is aware of what we do, the better, because then they understand how complicated it is, so that when something does go wrong, it's not because they sit there and say, oh, they're a bunch of fools, they don't care. They say, no, they care intensely, but they are asked to do way too much, and these things will happen then. So it's, everyone thinks I'm insane because I love my job. I really do. I've been doing it 6 years now, and I truly enjoy it, but it's very, very difficult. I would put it up against virtually any other job other than the president as far as like the amount of issues and the stress and the pressures and things like that. Anybody else?
So what gives you the most satisfaction from the job?
You know, my satisfaction is, it's amazing. Individual cases give me a lot of satisfaction. We had a 18-month-old child that was abducted by his birth mother. Complete disgrace how our child welfare system had handled this case. The mother had already had 3 children taken away from her at birth. The last one, when it was taken away, the mom tried to run over the caseworker with her car that was trying to get the baby. She had the newest baby. At birth, she was supposed to turn the baby over. She ran out of the hospital and took off, and it took 6 months or 8 months to find her. She was then arrested, and the baby was put into foster care. For reasons no one on this planet could figure out, the child welfare system decided it was a good thing to let mom have some visits with the child again. And so mom, in the meantime, had gotten 4 new warrants for her arrest for other crimes she committed. And they let mom have a visitation with the child at a McDonald's in South Holland. And mom shows up to the visitation, and immediately says that to the worker that came there with the child that she wants to take the child for get a drink of water. Took the child and then right out the side door of McDonald's into a U-Haul van that was driven by her boyfriend, who was a child sex offender because he had had sex with children. And then they took off. To make it worse, the child welfare system wasn't tracking it. I found out about it by accident. And so we pulled out every stop, and we found the child in Tennessee, and we were able to get him back, get him away from her. And so things like that are incredibly exciting to me. In the jail, when you see some people turning corners, that's exciting to me. But you know, overall, it's the fact, because I have so many young children, I just am obsessed by the notion that my father never had a waking moment when he did not feel that he was handing over a better world to me than he had. And I feel strongly that I'm handing a worse world off to my children, and I do not want to be able to, I don't want to be sitting there at the end of my life saying I didn't at least try. And so these are really tough issues, but someone's got to do them, and I don't mind doing them because it brings me satisfaction that we're trying to make it better. And it really is what underlies it, because there is nothing easy about this thing. My phone rings constantly, and the issues are pretty intense, but it's, you know, it's making it better for people is what keeps me going. Anybody else? Anybody? As they say, we have some other people from my office here who will be happy to talk to you. Sophia does like media-related stuff, so she'd be happy to talk to you in regards to that. Castelia has done a lot of work in just working with all sorts of different communities and working on whatever the issue may be. And Jim has worked, Jim's a detective in our investigations unit. He's done a lot of work with financial crimes, from the very sophisticated ones that we've talked about to the less sophisticated ones, and which is very unfortunate, where you have individuals who try to take advantage of, like senior citizens, for example. We see a lot more of that going on than ever before. So Jim's been working on a lot of the financial crimes where frequently family members are taking advantage of people in all sorts of bizarre and outrageous schemes to get money out of them. He specializes somewhat in that. And then we also, we have a real robust unit that goes after child trafficking. We've been really, really involved with that, and on going after internet crimes and going after these websites that put women up on the website and basically sell them. So we've been very busy. But all the individuals here from my office would be happy to help you afterwards. So if you have any additional questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much.
Okay, Sheriff, thank you very much for your devotion. I can share that with your devotion and your efforts, the Bulgarian community is very peaceful, and we also...
I know, we never see you at the jail.
Yeah, that's great. And I hope we're going to keep on not seeing us. We would like to extend...